Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
I wish I had like a sound. I have a soundboard. I'm just too lazy to fucking use it because I feel like every time my settings change, it never works correctly. I got the whole Elgato fucking push button shit, and it never functions when I need it to function. But with all the goddamn tech issues, like I can't tell you, man. My computer would not connect to my Bluetooth headphones, which pissed me the fuck off. So then I removed it from my computer, thinking that would help, and then it wouldn't find it. So then I restarted my computer, and then my fucking
look at that, it's working.
Your video.
Get out of town. This is the best day in the world. All right, I'm going to stop.
And you can still hear me?
I'm going to stop recording. Then that way I don't have to worry about it. I just started clicking on stuff, and apparently I hit the right thing. So here we are. Man.
Well, it's been a tumultuous start to the podcast, but this is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Valincius, and I have the pleasure of having Bob Lament with me, the host of Static Radio.
Good.
How you doing,
I feel
brother?
free now. I feel myself.
I got to tell you, I don't know if I've ever interviewed a cartoon character.
There's a first
before.
for everything, my friend.
But it's actually really fucking cool, man. So what do you use for that? So is it what was I playing with? There's a
This is
a cam
this is
program.
Adobe Character Animate is what this one is. And so yeah. And it is real time, so it's I mean, it kind of syncs to my voice for the most part. And then I can, move my head around and raise my eyebrows. I need to work on it some more so my arms will move, but this is as good as it gets at the moment.
That is awesome. So did you design this yourself? Did you have someone like create the baseline for you?
No,
or?
I just got the program and started messing around with it. So, I mean, this character is, I mean, you can find it, I'm sure, somewhere. I didn't create the character itself necessarily, but I chose it, and it's got my voice behind it, so.
So it makes it that much cooler.
Yeah, I wish I was a little
Now,
more adept, but I'm as adept as I can be. So,
Hey, look, I mean, that's pretty freaking cool. And I know a lot of that stuff can be a little difficult, especially when, obviously, when you're content creators like we are, you kind of do everything all on your own.
Yeah. I'm a cheap content creator, so I don't like to outsource too much. Because
I do the same thing. I've done the outsourcing a little bit in the past, and here's the thing: people don't know what you want. You know,
yeah.
So outside of you like watching them or sending them like a 2-page report of what you like, what they give you is not good. It just doesn't matter what you do. I mean, unless you have like a team of people that's with you and you can if you have the money to do that, great.
But part of it's the fun. So for me to create this was all part of the fun, right? So this little character came into existence pre-COVID. So we've been recording for a while, and a listener said, I would love to see you guys animated with your show because we did audio. And so for years I fiddled around with stuff, and I finally hit upon something that I could do to animate the show. And there's a little lightning bolt on the screen, and that's where my co-host, the screen would be wider, obviously, and then he would be over there. Well, he's not adept at anything technical. And so I had to do it all post. And and I did it for about, I don't know, at least 6 months. And then I took a vacation. And when I came back from vacation, I'm not fucking doing that anymore. It's just too much work. It's crazy amount of work to do all this rendering, because I had to render it all. And so then we put that to bed. I said, we did it. It worked. If I could devote more time and resources, I would do it continually. But I mean, literally, I would render things overnight, and to get a finished product. Well, what we're doing here tonight, is all real time. So times have changed a little bit since 2017 or whenever it was, and also it's just one end, so it's just my end that I have to worry about. So I can take care of that somewhat, as you could tell from tonight, and so. This is all real time, so it's not a lot of work. We do the show, it all happens. You're recording, we're all good, right? So that's what makes it fun.
That's fucking cool,
makes
man.
It real fun.
Yeah. There's something cool about learning all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you finally implement it, when it works.
Tonight is the perfect example of when it works.
You know what? So I've used a bunch of different softwares. I've used, I did Twitch. I've done Riverside. Squadcast has been the only one that I've used that I haven't really had many issues.
Oh, that's good.
Outside of today.
Well, no, I mean, it may be a special case. Just be honest,
Well, like I said, you're the first cartoon that I've interviewed. So maybe it just didn't want to play nice to start. But now let's talk a little bit about your show. So you are the host of the Static Radio, which you've been doing this since '99.
Yeah, we started. We started while we were in diapers.
Shit, man. Well,
I wish. No,
you gotta take me to the origins of Static Radio. What created it? What got you into it?
Well, so Miles and I went to college together, and we did college radio. At this point, I don't think there is anything called college radio. So when I say that, people are like, "What the fuck is he talking about?" I don't know. But there used to be college radio, and we did that back in the '90s, right? So we went to college, did that for a few years, and had a lot of fun. And we did a show essentially somewhat like what we do still today. We each tell a story. We try to crack each other up. At the time on college radio, we couldn't curse or anything, at least not much. And in between, we played records and CDs and what have you. So, we graduate, and we're still friends. And I said, hey, I got this idea. Do you want to keep doing what we used to do on college radio? I'll put it on the internet. And he doesn't know anything about technical. I mean, he's doesn't have any technical savvy. So he's like, yeah, whatever. What do I got to do? Okay. I go, well, I'm just going to call you on the telephone, and I'll record it on my end, and we'll do a show. And so we tested it out on Thanksgiving night of 1998. When everybody is tired of everybody else. And so we did a show. Then it worked. I basically I had a computer. I took a microphone from the computer and set it on a speakerphone. And he was on the speakerphone, and then the speakerphone, he came through. And so I was sitting right there, and it recorded both our voices to the computer. And we did that for years. I mean, probably about 2 or 3 years. And started doing the show. And so basically I say from January 99, because that's when we, in earnest, did the show every week. And so before that, we kind of fiddled around and tried to get, what we were going to do and whatnot. But by January 1999, over the course of that month after Thanksgiving, we pretty much had stuff together. And then I had a website built at that point as well. And so we were putting on a show. The funny thing, I don't know if I've ever actually talked about this, but we hit upon the weekly format because of Jerry Seinfeld, of all people. So I'd watched a documentary on Jerry Seinfeld, and he talked about working the calendar, I think is what he used, the term he used. And so he would write a joke. He would write jokes every day, and he had a number of jokes he would write, and then he would put an X on the day on the calendar if he completed his task. And I said, well, we're not going to record a show every day because that's just stupid, crazy, you know. At the time, for sure, because everything was way more, you know, even space, let alone uploading and all that kind of stuff. It was all a big pain in the neck. And so I said once a week. And so then he's like, yeah, I can do once a week. And so then basically we were talking to each other kind of on that interval anyway, just personally, because we're friends. We don't live near each other. And so I'm like, okay, once a week we'll talk and we'll record our stories. And so we've been doing that ever since. And so it kind of models that interval aspect of things that I saw on that Seinfeld documentary, which to be honest with you, has really worked in life. So if you have something you really want to accomplish, you know, take that tip. It's not really complicated. It's just keep track of yourself and you'll do it. If you don't keep track of yourself, you won't do it. And so that's what started it all. And we were going to play music, but that was the age of Napster. And, you know, grandmas were getting sued. And I'm like, I'm not going to get sued. So, because we used to play music in between talking. And so we basically, the format is we have a little bit of chit-chat at the beginning. We each have a strange or humorous story that we tell about our lives. And then we make fun of each other as we're doing it. And then the other person does their story, and we kind of cut up, you know, breaking balls and what have you, you know, and that's the format, and we've done it ever since. And sometimes it's golden, and sometimes it's probably like fingernails on a chalkboard. But you get what you get, right? I mean, it just happens because we don't talk ahead of time. There's no planning, and rarely, for me at least, on my side, he'd have to tell you on his side. On my side, I rarely even think about it until I sit down to do the call, right, to make the connection. And I kind of float some ideas. Yeah. I'm like, well, what could I talk about this week? But I don't really, you know, map anything out. It's all very off the cuff, spur of the moment kind of stuff because I never know what he's going to say. And so I don't want to plan awesome. Because essentially and he says the stupidest, craziest shit. So it's never going to work. I can't plan. And so I just basically throw it out there and then see what happens whenever he, you know, picks up on it. Sometimes he, you know, lambasts me, and sometimes he surprises me and says he's with me on something. Like I'm trying to think of an example. We have, you know, differences of opinion on how to handle certain things. And so I'll say, you know, I am vehemently opposed to panhandling. And so a lot of times I'll have these, when I'm walking around in the city or whatever, I'll get these panhandlers and I don't give them anything. And he thinks that's wrong. And I'm like, I'm not going to, you know, if I give it to one panhandler, I got to give it to all of them. And I'm a cheap bastard, so I'm not going to do it. So, and he always gives me a bunch of crap because I'm such a cold soul. And
now I'm on your side, Bob. I'm on your side. I'll tell you a quick story, okay? So I don't know where you're from.
Oh, but, St. Louis, Missouri.
Because I don't. All right, you're from Missouri, okay? I'm from Philly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was we have convenience stores like a 7-Eleven. They're called
the
Wawas.
Wawa.
They're really up and down the East Coast. Yeah. Yeah. It's from Wawa. Started in Wawa, Pennsylvania.
Cool.
So I'm in the northeast part of Philadelphia. I'm in a Wawa, and there was a guy in front of me that was paying, and there was a homeless guy in front of me, in between us, and then I was third. And the guy that's paying, I'm sorry. The homeless guy was first, then there was a guy in front of me, and then it was me. So the homeless guy's trying to pay, and he can't really talk.
Okay.
Okay.
He's homeless and mute.
So the guy behind me, Yeah. Oh, the story gets funnier. So the second guy's like, "Hey, I'll just pay the extra $1," and the Wawa employee was like, "No, sir, you can't pay for this guy's stuff. He's got to do it on his own."
Yeah.
And the guy's and then just leaves, right? So then the employee tells the guys like, "Listen," he's like, "normally you'd be doing a nice thing for somebody." He's like, "But that guy, he's here all the time. He actually has a ton of money. He got his tongue cut off in some sort of like crazy like he was being robbed or some crazy shit. But he panhandles for no reason. He's got like he'll break out wads of cash out of his pocket." And the Wawa employee's like, "No, you can't do that." So then, in my head, I'm like, I wouldn't have fucking gave that guy any money at all because I am in the same boat as you. When it comes to people who are homeless, panhandling, whatever, like 99% of the time. Now, I think I forget what the actual percentage is, but when I was going to college, I was big into psychology. So like every class I took was psychology. I don't know if it's like 50% of the homeless population is schizophrenic.
Oh.
And they just don't even fucking know it.
50%? That's a big percentage.
Yeah, it's something here. You know what? Let's
hit the Googles.
How many homeless are schizophrenic? AI, what are you going to tell me?
Everyone is homeless.
Okay, so it ranges 4 to 20%.
Okay, that's good. That's a good number.
So it said 2019 meta-analysis of 31 studies. They studied 52,000 homeless and found over 10% of them were schizophrenic. So, a lot of these people do have like mental issues.
Doesn't bode well for their marketing.
Look,
the homeless marketing.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? I grew up with people that were bipolar in my family, like and shit like that, and like all they need to do is go take some meds, right? There's a lot of programs for people. There's things that can have like a lot of those people they're just fucking lazy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not going to give you my fucking money if I've worked my ass off while you're just kind of standing there with a fucking sign, man. Yeah.
You
Fuck
want that Fifth Avenue bar, you're going to have to work a bit.
Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've always been that way. I've never like looked at a homeless person and was like, "Oh man, I feel so bad for them." But I will tell you, the thing that pisses me off the most is when a homeless person has a dog.
Oh, yes.
And they're using the dog. And I'm like,
heartstrings.
"No. That's fucked up because that dog, like, that dog has nothing." Now, I would never say that you should take the dogs from the homeless people because that's fucked up. Because I've seen videos of people doing that shit. Like, and that's fucked up. You don't take someone else's dog, But that's the type of shit. It's like you're bringing that dog into your bullshit.
Exactly.
It's like that dog could be somewhere getting some fucking food and not and being in a shelter.
No, he's stuck with you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not showering. You smell like shit. And this poor fucking dog, he's like, "Fuck, man." He didn't have a choice,
Exactly. Poor dog. Yeah, I don't like that either, but that's a pity. That's a pity move. They're like, "Oh, if you can't help me, help the dog." It's like, no, you're just going to take whatever I give you for you, and then the dog's going to be, eaten out of the garbage or whatever. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't like it, but
yeah, it's going to booze. It's not going to drugs. It's not typically going
that's true.
To a good outfit.
That's true as well. Exactly. It's like I don't want to be buying this guy's vodka, hip bottle of vodka. He obviously needs to move on with his life and do something else. You don't have to work. You just don't bother me about it. That's what I'm about. I'm like, I don't care what you do, just don't be bothering me about it. I'm not related to you.
Yeah, or trying to make you feel
exactly.
bad.
Exactly.
For your life decisions, they're trying to make you feel bad for the things that they fucked up.
Yeah, they're standing at the corner and everything. Jeez.
Yeah. So 25 years is a long time.
You're telling me. Goodness gracious.
how have you guys persevered? I know kind of in your bio you said outside of like, random holidays and people dying and stuff, you guys have done the show every week. So how do you keep it up? How have you persevered? And especially when you have a co-host.
Yeah, who's a lazy,
it's
lazy
two
piece
people.
of shit himself. Yeah, no kidding. No, so yeah, I always think we're not going to keep doing it. That's always my thing. I think when we first started doing it, I'm like, oh, we'll do this for a year and then we won't do it anymore. And then it was like, oh, we'll make it to 5 years and we'll stop doing this. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, it's been this long, and I'm like, how'd that happen? It's tough. I'll tell you that it's not as easy as it is, because I think part of it is rhythm. So if you're on a rhythm, so we typically always record at the same time on the same day, right? So a lot of rhythm to it. So it's always happening in that sequence. So you don't want to break the rhythm, right? And then I'm a son of a bitch, and I will call his house until he picks up and gets on. Now we do like we're doing here. We do it all online and so forth, as opposed to the telephone. But if he doesn't show up, then I'm texting him and calling him, and he gets, I forgot, or I'm at the Walmart getting some cookies. And so I mean, I don't know, he probably would tell you something different, but I think partially it's because I'm such a nut, and it's just kind of one of those things. I'm like, I just wanted to keep it going, but it's so fun. The other thing is it's so fun. So you and I are having this conversation. We've never met. We had some emails or whatever, but we're having a fun conversation, right? And so now you think about that, but with somebody you've known for a long time, and how fun it is just to talk to them, especially whenever your whole goal is to crack each other up. And so I think that's partially it too. Now, the kind of the other side of it is a lot of times we don't talk to each other except on the night that we're going to talk to each other. So it kind of eliminates some of that kind of random back and forth that would happen in natural real life, because we don't want to. So you get, it's weird because it's like, well, I can't talk to them because I may tell them my story and then I won't have a story for this week or something like that. So we don't actually have a lot of interaction.
You got to save the juicy nuggets.
Yeah. And,
you got to save the juicy nuggets.
And the hilarious thing is we have been friends all this time, but we probably haven't even like seen each other in person, but maybe about a half a dozen or a dozen to half a dozen times over those years. So, it's like, where I think normal functioning adults would probably make a little more time. but we talk to each other so regularly that we don't have that need, you know what I mean? We've talked. Yeah. And we do talk socially. Typically we talk for the shows. Generally we've had a format where we pretty much run a half an hour, and then we spend at least another half hour, 45 minutes just chatting about, whatever's happening. That's not related to what we're going to talk about for funny stuff. But, is your wife doing okay? She stepped on a Lego and had to go to the emergency room. That was the story. And then, I kind of cut up on that. And then afterwards I make sure that she's going to live, So it's weird like that. But I think that's a lot of it. And the fun aspect of it is really what's pushed it forward. When it's not fun anymore, we won't do it, So, yeah.
Well, the internet's a wild thing. It's kind of wild. You started in like '99, because I feel that was the .com.
Yeah,
bubble,
it was bubble days.
That was when shit was crazy.
Yeah, where's my bubble money? That's what I want to know.
Hey, you never know. I mean, the static IPO could be one for the ages.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, eventually, maybe after I die or something. But yeah, it was Wild West back then, and stuff was all weird and crazy. I mean, doing this then was a very lonely desert. There wasn't a lot going on. Nowadays, everybody grows up now that, oh yeah, this has just been this way forever. It really hasn't been. I mean, I sought out other people who were doing this back then, like anything I could find. And the funny thing is, I'll tell you, there's one person that I met early on, and he used to do a thing called the Basement Internet Show, which is no longer in existence, and you can't find any trace of it. And he was a great guy who helped me technically with some things because he was doing them as well. And then he just kind of disappeared. I had just going to assume he's dead at this point, but because I cannot find anything on him. And then there was a guy who I still talk to this day back in the early 2000s, and his name is Frank Nora, and he still does a show from back then to now. And I still talk to him, online. And I've met him because he lives in New York, and so when I went to New York, I met with him for a little while. And so, but yeah, we still interact over the years. And then the wild thing is, for a little while, and this is one of those, this comes into being relevant now, because he was a Nickelodeon star, and he was doing this online radio business after he was not a child actor anymore. He was the little brother on Clarissa Explains It All, and I was talking to him.
Oh shit! Dude, I fucking loved that. I was a big Nickelodeon kid.
Funky Ferg, right? So Ferg was him and his friend back in the early 2000s used to work at HBO, and they did a show called X2 Radio, which you probably can't find anymore. But I was probably a little more friendly with Nate, which was his co-host. But they did a regular show as well, and I talked to them, and so I have this weird semi-connection with Clarissa's little brother Ferguson, and so it's weird. But I've tried over the years, like over the last probably about 6 years or so, I've been trying to reconnect with some of those people from the past to talk to them again, but I can't. I know who he is, his real name, and I know. I found him, and I've tried to make a connection, but I think he wants to forget about that, to be honest with you. Because he's even though I have information that most people don't have, which now I've given away, but a little bit. I was like, hey, you were on X2 Radio, and we used to talk anyway. But he hasn't ever responded to my pleas for an interview with him. So.
Those were the golden years for Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah,
Clarissa Explains It All, like Ren and Stimpy, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like all those things, like that kids nowadays, like they would be outlawed. Like the first episode of Ren and Stimpy is Ren doesn't fucking brush his teeth, so all of his teeth falls out. And like I still remember that episode to this day, and was like, I need to brush my fucking teeth because you see his fucking nerves wiggling. I mean,
I used to love with the extreme close-ups they
kids
do
don't
on
get that
cartoon. They do the it'd be like normal animation, like, and then they'd zoom in. It would be this nastiest looking thing that you could draw. And
they had Inside Out Boy, where it's a kid with his skin inside out, and he's I mean, there was just shit that, like, for sure fucked people up.
Yeah, in the cat box.
Stimpy, it was classic.
Stimpy, you idiot. And then you see Stimpy's cat box is all full of turds. Oh, my God. Yeah.
And then Rocco's Modern Life. I mean, there was just shit you're never going to see now because I've talked about this on my podcast before.
But that's early days for like... kids network kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Disney Channel wasn't going to do that, but Nickelodeon did. So,
no,
and that's why they've got the
Disney
special
Channel.
with Dan Schneider getting hounded about being a jerk on HBO right now. So,
have you watched it?
I watched all of it,
it's pretty. Yeah, it's. I didn't see the last episode, which had I guess the sit down with
kind
people.
Of a rehash, but
Yeah, it was it's pretty eye opening because you don't like as a kid, and I was, I don't know, 9 to 12 or whatever, like the actual Nickelodeon kid age, right? I didn't see any of that shit, but when you rewatch some of that shit, especially as it gets older, like past when I stopped watching it with like Ariana Grande, where she's like, sucking on her own toe, and you're just like, and then she's pouring water on herself. You're like, that's not cool, dude. But I didn't see any of those things as a kid. You're just laughing because they're doing dumb shit.
Exactly.
But then, there's all the sexual innuendos that you totally miss.
Dan Schneider's the Quentin Tarantino of children's programming, by the way. So Quentin Tarantino is famous for having a foot fetish, and apparently so is Dan Schneider. So
I did hear about his foot fetish. He's got some weird shit. I think, didn't he have a scene where he was like begging someone to suck on their feet? He was like a random,
I think so,
person. I forget who the fuck it was.
Well, the funny thing about Dan Schneider was that he was a child actor himself. He was in a show called Head of the Class.
Really?
If you go, and that was when he was a teenager, but he acted before that. There's a great movie from the late 80s called Better Off Dead that he's in, and he's playing a character that's pretty funny. But yeah, he was an actor way before he did any of the rest of this, and so and the same with his partner was named Brian. I'm gonna give you a bunch of trivia shit. Sorry, Brian Robbins, and he was in Head of the Class as well. So they kind of grew up together, and then they, at a point you can't, be a kid actor anymore, and so then they went into producing, and then somehow they got on this Nickelodeon thing, and it took off. It's just amazing. But yeah, I don't think that now that I've badmouthed him, I don't think that he's as guilty as they made him out to be in the documentary. But he certainly is guilty of some stuff, but not necessarily as bad as I think they want him to be portrayed. Yeah,
I feel like it started out with him being like they were trying to make it seem like he was this perv and all this other stuff, and he probably was, but really it was the other guy that was like
the other people that they ended up hiring. He was really
doing all the shit to Drake.
They were actually they were worse. Yeah. But when you're responsible.
I remember that guy's character.
Yeah,
I remember that guy's character vividly.
Boy or whatever. Yeah, what was his name? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird, but it was funny. It was
fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, we probably wouldn't have laughed if we knew how fucked up he was.
I don't know. When you're kids,
those people hide it well, man.
Laugh anyway, when you're a kid, you're like, they broke your finger.
Oh yeah. Well, I did want to ask you about this. So, I know you like to talk about current events on
every
your
once
show.
in a while. Sure, I love current events.
So, Disney. Now, since we're on the Nickelodeon kick, I needed to bring this up. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Big Star Wars fan. There is a huge controversy right now with their new show called The Acolyte. And I don't know if you've seen
I watched
of the shit.
I watched the latest episode today, as a matter of fact.
I refuse to watch it because of all the bullshit. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Huge Star Wars fan.
You don't want to give anything away, do you?
No, don't give anything away, but what are your thoughts? Because I'll tell you, all the stuff that I've seen on social media with like all the big Star Wars fans and shit is that a lot of the actors, and specifically the fucking lady that South Park made fun of that runs Disney, is they wanted to make it so that basically white people were like non-existent. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone's gay, everyone's black, Asian, whatever, and like the couple white people that are in it are like totally insignificant. That's like basically, and like the actors have come out and said we wanted to make white people mad. Like that, like literally were videos of and so I'm a little like irritated because I mean, I guess I've always watched Star Wars and I've always felt like they were, Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, some of the old movies were filmed back in, the late 70s and early 80s. So, yeah, you're not going to get a ton of black guys in it, but the black guys that were in it were some of the best fucking characters in the show. You had Vader, you had fucking Lando. I mean, it's not like they were, stagehands or whatever.
Major characters, yes.
They were fucking major characters, and even like there's stuff about women, and it's like you hear George Lucas was talking.
Well, they're not. They're all
on a
aliens.
panel or something.
That's what he said. Somebody was talking to him about representation, and he's like, "Well, they're all aliens." So yeah, that was his answer to it. He didn't see him as anything.
Well, and his thing, he was, but he was also talking that, his view was that Princess Leia was the hero of the story. Not, it wasn't Luke. It wasn't, it was Princess Leia, who's a woman.
Han were kind of
so like,
really, if you look at, if you think about it as you're watching it, yes, they got into situations, but they were not in control. They were just kind of bouncing through it. So she was the one who was in command.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the Acolyte? Now that you've watched.
Well, the only thing I watched it this afternoon, and then I saw this like a Simpsons meme where Homer's talking to Bart, and Bart's like, "This is the worst Star Wars episode ever," and Homer goes, "No, this is the worst Star Wars episode so far," and so it's kind of a funny thing, but. To be honest, so I haven't read a lot of the stuff from about the Acolyte. I personally like to just kind of go into these things blind, and then afterwards maybe I'll look into it more. So I mean, other than I know that George Lucas was talking about diversity in the Star Wars universe. That's the only soundbite that I think I've caught recently. The thing is, for me, I watched the first 2 episodes. I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, it's not the greatest, and this, if you watch the first 2 episodes, this. It's not the greatest story in the sense that they use twins, which is like a soap opera thing, right? In every soap opera ever, there's somebody and their twin, and one of the twins is good and one of the twins is evil. And it's a trope. I mean, it is not original material. And so I'm like, they're using the twin thing. Luke and Leia, they're twins. That wasn't even original back then whenever they made that. So we're not talking about stellar writing to begin with. But I don't even think about that. You mentioned it just now to me. I haven't read what you've read. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, Trinity from The Matrix is in it. But that's about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She plays a character, but I didn't really even think about that aspect of it because, and this is going to really sound stupid after I made fun of him, but because if you're absorbed in the story, they're just other people. They're just other things, right? They're just not humanoid necessarily. A lot of people got bones sticking out of their face and kooky pigtails made of their own fat. I mean, you have all these different weird-looking characters. Some of them are CG, some of them are makeup. And to me, Star Wars is not about the individual participants necessarily at this point in time. It used to be, right? When the original trilogy came out, it was about those characters, right? Now it's about characters in Star Wars. So Star Wars is aesthetic. Right? So when you see something, you're like, oh, this is Star Wars. You don't go, oh, there's Luke Skywalker, there's Han Solo, because they're not there. It's a look, it's an aesthetic, they built a world that everyone enjoyed, right? And then they just populate it with, I mean, you could literally just throw anything you want into it, and it's Star Wars not because of who's in it, but of what it looks like, where they're at. And so, you don't see everywhere. So if you watch Andor, did you watch Andor?
I did not. I know it's really good. Wait, yeah, that's the show, not
correct,
the movie, right?
The show. Well, give me the last Star Wars series type thing that you watched. So I'm not going to give anything away from it.
Well, Mandalorian.
There you go. Mandalorian.
Course,
perfect example. Yeah. The Mandalorian looks cool because the Mandalorian looks like Star Wars, right? And it doesn't matter. You know, the Mandalorian is who is the Mandalorian? He's you know the man with no name for the most part, right? I mean, they gave him a name, but
it's true.
But to most people, as the encounters,
Boba Fett. I watched Boba Fett.
It wasn't the best. It was good, but it wasn't the best. You know.
It wasn't great, right. But it wasn't.
But
you know,
it was Star Wars.
awful.
It was the aesthetic, right? So, I think people get
nostalgia with that one for sure.
Because you have people who watch the original trilogy, you have people who watch the prequels, you have people who watch the sequels, and it's like parents and children and grandchildren at this point have all absorbed this world, and the world is what everybody wants to see, and they just play stories in the world with characters in those worlds, and that's the cool part, right? And so, I mean, everybody's got an agenda these days, and so I can tell you, number one,
it's true
that Disney could give a crap about that agenda on a real, if you had a real level. They'll give you the sermon. Yes, we need to be equitable to everyone. We need to do this. If it's not making money, guess what? Slash and burn. Everybody's fired, right? The number one thing Disney wants to do is make money. And so if they need to put a white character in there to make money, they'll do that. If they need to put a black character to make money, they'll do that. The characters don't matter. What matters is making money. And then people love to put these agendas on, and I think the actors maybe try to do that because of their own personal agenda. I'm sure that people at Disney are probably thinking, shut up. Why are you talking about this? We're trying to make money. We need people to watch the show. And because that's really the bottom line for these things. They're selling you Star Wars, and they're the wrapping paper is there in the world, and now they're trying to make a present out of it with whatever, story they throw in there. I would say this latest episode of the Acolyte was a horrible episode, and it was handled really poorly. Because there was so if you look at the first prequel, right? So it borrowed story elements from that, and with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, going around and so forth. So it borrowed some elements from that. It borrows from other pieces of the Star Wars, the history, but they did it in such a horrible way. We'll see what happens in the next episode. I love to watch it because I love the aesthetic. That's really what it boils down to.
I know, man. I fucking love Star Wars.
You have you were probably
I was never really
saw it, so.
Yeah, I the Andor stuff. So I guess I never was into. I was always into the Jedi and the Sith. I wasn't really always into a lot of those other storylines with the soldiers and the TIE fighters and that type
and the
of stuff.
Senate.
So
everybody
there's
wants
certain
to talk
elements.
About the Senate.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a nightmare.
Yeah. I just don't tend to watch. I did watch the movie. What was that? The movie was
Rogue One.
Rogue One. Yeah, Rogue One was fucking amazing.
Good show.
I wouldn't have watched that though on my own. I had friends that were like, "Hey, we're going to the theater. You should come watch this movie with us." And I'm like, "All right, but turned out that it was really fucking good.
Good stuff.
And there's certain things that I definitely want to watch. Like what's I want to watch Clone Wars, the cartoon.
It was
I heard
great.
that's really
I watched
good. Yeah, so there's certain things that I still are on my docket to see. But the wifey's not a big Star Wars fan, so I have to. Yeah, that's more of something I'd watch on. Now I did get her to watch Mandalorian,
which is great
because of Baby Yoda.
Do you like the Mandalorian? Okay, I love.
I love the Mandalorian. I think it was well done. I think Disney's weird, right? I feel like they'll just throw 10 things out there, and one, maybe two will be good. I'm happy The Mandalorian
law
was
of
good.
averages there. They're rolling the dice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's just what happens when you have a large company, and you see that, like, I'm a gamer. You see that in games, like Activision, EA. They've bought so many great companies like BioWare and Respawn that put out great games, but then after they buy them, it's just they just want money. And I get it. Like, I'm a business person, so I get that you have to make money to stay, and you always, in the corporate world, you always have to be up. You always have to be up 5%, 10%, 20%. So you always have to find ways to make money, but they spend so much time on the money-making aspect and not the actual craft that it's caused so many of these really good franchises to just be mediocre. Like, Star Wars should never be mediocre. It's a fucking epic franchise.
It should be good, right? Well, but that's also where you get whenever they're driving those numbers. So, the Disneyfication, if you want to call it that, of Star Wars, is that they want more product. They got to put more characters out there to see what characters hit, in order to then drive, because then, you can catch the Mandalorian at Disney World along with Grogu hanging out in Star Wars land there in Batu. So, they have to keep driving that. So my weather alarm's going off. I think we're getting a storm. Sorry.
Oh, that's fun.
It hasn't happened yet, so it's coming.
Well, you guys had some tornadoes. A buddy of mine lives out in Missouri. You guys had some tornadoes.
Yeah,
a week or two ago.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good time.
He didn't have power for. Yeah, he didn't have power for like 2 or 3 days.
It got bad here, so it's not supposed to be that bad tonight, I don't think. So that's good.
Yeah, we don't get those in Philly. Very rarely.
No, you just can't find parking.
We've seen them.
Part of there,
that's true. That's why I Uber everywhere. So since you're the tech side of your pod, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what's your thoughts on AI.
Oh, yeah.
Not the NBA player.
I know.
Artificial intelligence.
I actually did a little recording with a friend of mine, probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago on this. Not with Miles, because he has no clue. Basically, he's like, "Oh, you mean I can type in whatever woman I want to see naked? Maybe, I don't know." So
there's probably a program out
there
for that
is.
if you want.
He'll find that one. He'll figure that one out. No, as far as to me, and I love this and I talked to somebody else about this. I can't remember who it was, but you know how there's just all this. We're flooded with AI content at this point, right? So all this AI is getting leaked out into all these areas, and they're like, we're going to clamp down on this, right? But again, unfortunately, I'm going to sound like a broken record. If it gets hits, it gets likes, it gets views, they're not going to clamp down on it. That's just, the bullshit way of saying, we have creative people doing creative things. Well, to a point, yeah.
Yeah.
It's neither here nor there. It's going to settle in at some point. I think it's a useful tool if you want it, and it's just like anything that gets made and put technology that gets put out there. It all explodes and people go crazy, and then the reality of it sets in, and then everybody's like, yeah, I don't know that I want 100 stories to go through. I mean, people are just creating things to throw them out there. It's see what sticks kind of a situation, and eventually that'll all die down. People get bored and move on to the next thing. So, but
yeah, I mean, look, I gotta tell you, my Squadcast was bought by Descript a little while ago, maybe like 6 months ago, and Descript's fucking awesome. So, like, I actually just discovered this myself because I didn't realize all of the capabilities that the program had. So I wasn't using it. I was going into Adobe. I was editing my audio through there. I was editing my video through Premiere Pro, and it was taking me a while longer.
Yeah.
Well, with Descript, I just literally drag the files over. It creates everything for me. It's a little clunky at first, but it's got its own AI built in that will clip however many clips that I want. It'll automatically put a transcript to everything. It'll automatically, if I want it to create social posts, it'll automatically do that for me. I could post directly to YouTube. I mean, it's literally like I can cut 5 clips and the entire video and be done with it in 2-3 hours tops.
Oh yeah.
And that's me being particular. Like if I want to just throw shit out there, wait under an hour, 100%.
No, I'm not using Descript, but I can't remember which one I'm using, but to make clips and as a kind of an experiment over the course of this year. So every year I for artwork and for social stuff and whatnot, I always kind of fiddle around. So this year I'm like I'm going to use AI to create artwork for the show, and I'm just going to put a description in, and then whatever we get, we get. I'm not going to fiddle with it too much. And that's what we've been putting out. It looks fine, whatever. It's not what I want half the time, but I don't. Yeah. That's my kind of plan. And then I also do where I throw in we create a little video each week of the show, and I throw it into one of those things, and it basically parses it out for me and gives it a name. Let me see here. I'll probably tell you what some of the names are here. Just a second. So the one, hopefully I won't totally freeze up or anything. So that's right. So I go with whatever it gives me. So here's one like a minute clip from the show called "Sexy Sweatpants Fashion Fame." It sounds like Russian people made this up. Amusing discussion about dancing to music. That's the title it gives it. Fame and jealousy banter. Okay, and then actually one of the things that have gotten the most attention is I love the title of this one: "Craziest Eye Doctor Ever." And a lot of people have gone to see who that was. They're probably sorely, wish they wouldn't have went.
Disappointed.
Because they went there, and it's just me. I'm talking about Crazy Eye Doctor, but you don't get to see him or anything. You just get to hear about him. But so I mean, I think all that's cool and everything, but it's just unfortunately. And if you take the time like you're doing, I'm not taking any time. I set it up, I walk away, I come back. I got 16 clips. I pull the ones I like the best, and Bob's your uncle, and put them out there on social and what have you. But if you really try for it, I mean, it's a time saver for certain, right? And I think it's only going to get better and better. Right now, to me, it starts and stops in weird places every once in a while, but I'm just leaving it. And so you'll pop into the middle of something, and then you'll end before it ends. But that's fine. But I can see where it's going to be something that's going to be good and save people a lot of time. But I think that the other end of that is then like what I'm doing is just kind of stupid. But then you got people just pumping out crap. And so, is that
true? Is
Sexy Sweatpants Fashion Fame something that you really want to listen to? I don't know. Maybe you do, but to me, it's like I love the title of it, so that's why I chose it. But and it gives you a percentage. Your thing tell you a percentage of it like gives you a percentage of what they think is going to be more. Perform better on your social media, so they rank it for you.
It'll give me stars. It's out of 5 stars. Yeah, so it's like this one's a 4-star, this one's a 2-star. And it's like it has its own. It'll give you the description of why it thinks it's that. But I do agree with you. The clips can be a little wonky, and so like I'll fiddle with it. I'm a perfectionist, so. It's a blessing and a curse. So like, I know that like the clip. Yeah, I know the clip I'm putting out is going to be good, but I would have been able to get 10 other clips out if I just fucking threw
Right.
it out there and just
Right.
said fuck it, you know.
Yeah,
But
we'll
I don't
see.
know. It's hard for me to just throw it out there.
And I've done, I'm into Photoshop and doing all kinds of stuff on my own. And so in the past, I would, put together artwork and fiddle around with it and take a lot of time. And then I'm like, well, let's just see what this does. And so, it frees me up a little bit. I mean, it's all acceptable in some sense. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I really wouldn't have done that personally.
Yeah.
I think what'll happen, I try to stick to the year. So like one year I did only icons. All our album art was icons. So, but this is, you asked earlier about why do you keep doing this? Because I'm always changing it up, right? So then I'm doing something that I think is kind of fun or different, or learning something. Like I learned to do this little animation thing all the time. I mean, it all becomes a creative outlet. And I sound very hoity-toity. I'm sure Miles would knock me off my pedestal when I say stuff like that. But, I do. I love the creative aspect of it, because you don't get to do that as freely. I mean, even though there's all these tools and you can do anything you want if you can get a hold of a few tools, not even that many anymore. It's so accessible with your phone or anything, but people don't do it, right? But you can. And so I love the fact that I can. And so then I do as much as I can stomach. Sometimes, you get kind of sucked into it. Like you said, you get perfectionist and you get sucked into it. So you always have to have some kind of balance, So I've got kids, and so you have to, you can't go, oh, then Dad's working on some show art. You can't deal with you right now. And so, you have to, and then, you have to keep up your relationships. I probably would be just as happy had life gone a different way. Not that I don't love my wife or anything if she's listening, but I'm perfectly fine sitting in the dark, fiddling around with all my stuff. And that sounded bad. That sounded really bad there for a second. I'm getting in Dan Schneider territory.
I'm actually... I'm in the same boat as you, dude. I believe me 100%.
But, messing around with all
I could
this.
probably spend 8 hours.
I recently did a thing,
easy.
And I thought it was fun. I was in contact with a guy, and his show is he does Chat GPT stories. So it's almost like Mad Libs. If you remember Mad Libs at all, it was a thing. So you give him, you don't get to see where the blanks are. You fill in some blanks, and then he has Chat GPT make a story. And then you read it cold, right? You just get a look. You don't even get to read it ahead of time. You read the story cold. And then you see how close it came to the prompts that you gave it. It was fascinating. You should try it. You should try it on your things.
So I'm in another podcast called Body Wrong, and it's
is it a body shaming podcast where you body shame each other constantly?
We definitely make fun of each other 95% of it. But it's 4 other podcasters. We were up to 8. We had 8 at one point. It was a little difficult to keep up with, but right now we have 5. And it started as just a fantasy football podcast.
How did you get the title from that?
Well, so originally it was called the Steve Winwood Fantasy Football League. The singer Steve Winwood.
I'm trying to think of the song that is famous. If you see a chance to make it, right? That's Steve Winwood, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And so we've gone through a couple iterations of. We had an entire year of fantasy football, and we were using ChatGPT, and there was a punishment. I forget what happened, but they made me do. We were making fun of it was a Texans receiver, Johnson.
Oh,
Johnson.
I'm not a football guy. I'm sorry.
Not a football guy. Johnson.
Miles is a football guy. He'd probably be all over this. Oh yeah, that guy.
Andre
Okay.
Johnson, who we all were telling. So our buddy Burley he's in Houston, so he's a Texan fan, and we're making fun of Andre Johnson. He said, well, he's in the Hall of Fame, blah blah blah. We were just making fun of him. So then I got a punishment. We have a wheel of punishments, basically, and someone got to choose the punishment, and they made me do Andre Johnson's Hall of Fame acceptance speech. And I just plugged it into Chat GPT, and it was the funniest fucking speech
I just give my
ever.
110%. I'm glad to be here.
It was, and I've used that a couple of times on the show for dumb shit that was just super funny, and because it kicks out some really funny stuff. But what I was doing with ChatGPT lately this year, so I ended my podcast season 1 at 76 episodes and started season 2 recently, and I'm trying to do some better stuff with SEO, and so what I do is I will have Descript pull the transcript of the podcast for me, and so I'll put the podcast transcript with my episode that on I use Buzzsprout, and then what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll put that in the Chat GPT, and I'll say, hey, I need you to summarize this in a blog format, and it'll kick out a blog that summarizes the whole podcast, and then I take that and I will put that I created my own website as well, so I will make a blog on my website utilizing the Chat GPT when it kicks out, because in my research what I found is there is other hearing impaired people that may want to check out the show and they can't, so they can read it, right? So you have the transcript, and then you also have the summary, and the summaries are pretty cool because I'll use AI to do the picture for I guess that's the feature picture of it, so it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Do the feature picture
but look,
from the transcript or from the kind of abbreviated version, the notes?
So I use a different software, a different AI, called Midjourney.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar.
It's through Discord. So I paid for a year of that, and I'll just go in. I'll plug in a prompt for whatever topic that we went on, or if it's something I know for sure that the guest was all about, and I'll say, hey, plug this in, and then it'll kick out a couple different photos, and then I'll figure out which one I like, and I'll use that as the artwork, which is pretty fun. So yeah, I mean, I use AI in probably 50% of the production, and creation and art, and it's definitely freed up a lot of time. But well, look, we're past the hour mark.
Really? Get out of town.
Yeah, I mean, we probably could go another hour. At least I didn't even get to half the stuff I wanted to talk about. But tell the listeners, viewers, everybody where they can find your stuff, and if
let's put in some keywords here. Keywords are alpha, orange, midgets, wrestling, pornography, and Seika.
Okay, I like that. The midgets, I hope it pulls some hilarious shit when it talks to the midgets.
Who knows? Tell me if that comes out. I don't know. We'll see. It may just gloss right over that because it doesn't make any sense. But so they can find us. They can find us at staticradio.com, at Static Radio on most of the socials, and that's pretty much. I mean, that's it. I think there's not much else to say past that.
Awesome, man. Well,
listen if you want. Don't listen if you don't want. Doesn't matter. If you really want to know more about sexy sweatpants fashion fame, we're the place to go.
I think that's going to be the cover photo of the blog I do for this. I will see what AI kicks out for me. But you can find this podcast on anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's Drink O'Clock Podcast. And then social media, Drink O'Clock Pod on everything. We'll probably have this episode up in a week or two whenever I get around to. So, Look, man, it was a pleasure having you on, and you have a fucking great night, man. Don't party too hard.
No kidding. Actually, I'm probably going to be watching the skies for tornadoes to drop out of them. Ugh.
Oh shit, man. Well, yeah, stay safe. Hopefully you have electric.
We got a basement. We'll all be in the basement here in about 2 hours. There you go.
Get in the bathtub, right? I think that's what that's a safe. Yeah, that's a safe spot. All right, Bob. You have a great night, man. Thank you.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's fly. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the flame. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner park to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer here, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise the